Nurse dives into pool to save drowning boy. What the billionaire dad does next changes her life forever. No one ever expects to witness death on a perfect day. Before we go further, please ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories like this one. The sun blazed high over Austin, Texas, casting a golden shimmer across the crystal-clear pool of the Crestmore Grand Hotel. It was the kind of afternoon that belonged in a postcard. Laughing families, clinking glasses, soft music drifting through warm air. It was, by all accounts, a flawless afternoon, until a woman screamed. Time didn't slow, it snapped. A child's body floated unnaturally still at the deep end of the pool. Face down, limbs slack. At first, the crowd froze, stunned. Some stood. Others pointed. A few gasped. But no one moved. Someone help him, a mother wailed, voice shrill with terror. Still, no one jumped in. Across the patio, Elena Ramirez had just stepped out of the hotel's café, iced coffee in hand. She was dressed casually, jeans, sneakers, a plain navy t-shirt. Her dark curls were tied in a loose bun, her expression tired from a long hospital shift the night before. She wasn't here to save anyone today. But instincts don't wait for invitations. The moment her eyes locked on the motionless figure in the water, her coffee hit the pavement. Her bag dropped behind her. Elena broke into a sprint, heart pounding as adrenaline surged. Without breaking stride, she launched herself over the pool gate, kicked off her sneakers mid-run, and dove in fully clothed. The cold water hit her like concrete, but she was already underwater, reaching. She grabbed the boy under the arms, surfacing with him in seconds. His body was limp, too limp. As she swam toward the edge, his small frame sagged in her grip. Her muscles screamed, but she kept pushing. A pair of strong hands helped pull them up from the pool. Elena clambered onto the scorching tiles, soaked and gasping. The boy, maybe 6 or 7, lay motionless beside her, lips blue, chest still. She straddled him and began compressions. 1, 2, 3. Breathe. 1, 2, 3. Breathe. Call 911, she shouted, her voice sharp. I'm a nurse. Someone fumbled with a phone. Others crowded closer, but not too close. The crowd was a wall of noise, gasps, crying, whispers. Elena heard none of it. Her world had narrowed to the boy's chest, and the seconds slipping away. Come on, she whispered. Nothing. She tilted his head, breathed again, continued compressions. Sweat mixed with water on her brow. Her arms burned, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Breathe, baby. Please, breathe, she murmured. And then, like a miracle, the boy jerked. Coughed. Water spewed from his mouth. The sound was beautiful. He coughed again, rolled to his side, and whimpered weakly. Cheers erupted behind her. People clapped. Someone cried. But Elena didn't smile. Her hands trembled as she checked his pulse, gently turned him, and made sure he was safe. Her breathing slowed, but her heart thundered. Relief swept over her like a crashing wave. Only then did she look up and see him. The man stood apart from the crowd, drenched in a designer suit that clung to his tall, muscular frame. Water dripped from his sleeves, soaking expensive leather shoes. His face, striking, angular, unnervingly pale, was locked in an expression of horror and disbelief. His eyes, a piercing blue, didn't leave the boy. Charlie, the man whispered. He took a step forward. Elena moved aside, and he dropped to his knees beside the child, cupping the boy's damp cheek with a trembling hand. Daddy, the boy rasped, eyes fluttering open. The man choked back a sob. I'm here, buddy. I'm right here. Paramedics arrived seconds later, pushing through the gawking crowd. Elena backed away, still on her knees, soaked to the skin. Her hands were stained red with pool tiles. Her clothes clung to her body, but she barely noticed. One of the medics nodded at her. You the responder? She nodded. You saved his life. Elena didn't answer. She just exhaled, slow and shaky. As they lifted the boy onto a stretcher and wheeled him toward the ambulance, the man stood again. His eyes met Elena's. For a second, neither spoke. Then, with surprising softness, he said, I don't even know your name. Elena, she replied, brushing wet hair from her face. He stared at her as if memorizing every feature. I'm Grant. She didn't know what else to say, so she said nothing. He opened his mouth again, then stopped. He turned and followed the stretcher, leaving a trail of wet footprints behind him. By the time the crowd began to thin and hotel staff offered towels, Elena had already slipped away. She didn't do it for applause. She didn't wait for a thank you. She did it because she had to. Because doing nothing would haunt her forever. Back in her apartment that evening, Elena sat in silence. Her clothes were dry. The world had moved on. But the image of the boy's still body haunted her. She had no idea who Grant was. She didn't know the child's name was Charlie Maddox, or that the man she'd spoken to, soaked, speechless, and broken, was one of the richest and most powerful men in the country. But for now, she just stared at her hands that had brought a boy back to life, and wondered what came next. The Texas sun crept through Elena's apartment blinds as her alarm buzzed dully. Her muscles ached from the day before, and the echoes of the poolside chaos still haunted her thoughts. She sat on the edge of her bed, rubbing her face, trying to shake off the weight of yesterday. Then came the knock. She padded barefoot to the window. Parked outside her modest building was a sleek, black town car, engine humming quietly. A man in a crisp suit stood beside it, holding something. A knock came again, firmer this time. Cautiously, she opened the door. The suited driver tipped his head politely and extended a small envelope. "Miss Ramirez?" She nodded, more question than confirmation. "This is for you." She took the envelope. The paper was thick, expensive. Inside was a single card, handwritten in black ink. "Please, meet me. G. M." There was no time, no place, no explanation. Just the initials that made her heart knock against her ribs. By afternoon, curiosity overpowered hesitation. She found herself stepping into the town car, dressed in a simple, navy blouse and black slacks, not glamorous, but clean, presentable, safe. The car swept through downtown Austin, gliding past skyscrapers and sunlit plazas before pulling up to a private elevator at a luxury tower. No signs, no announcements. Just a silent rise into the sky. When the doors opened, she was greeted by a hostess with a practiced smile. "Miss Ramirez, please follow me." The rooftop restaurant unfolded like a dream, sleek white linen, glass railings, and panoramic views of the city stretching to the horizon. It was the kind of place people booked months in advance. At a secluded corner table, he waited. Grant Maddox, the man from the pool. He stood as she approached, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit. His expression unreadable, his eyes sharp and searching. "Miss Ramirez," he greeted, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Elena," she corrected gently, sitting down. "Thank you for coming." She offered a polite smile. "You made it hard to say no." A faint hint of amusement flickered in his eyes. He paused, then leaned forward. "Yesterday, I watched you pull my son from the water. You saved his life." She shook her head. "I just did what any nurse would have done." "No," he said firmly. "Anyone could have panicked. Froze. Filmed it. You jumped in without thinking twice." Elena shifted in her seat, uncomfortable with the attention. "Honestly, I didn't think. I just moved." He reached into his jacket and slid an envelope across the table. "Then let me do the same. It's not charity. It's gratitude." She didn't open it. "I can't accept this." "Elena, I'm serious." She pushed it gently back toward him. "Charlie's okay. That's enough." He studied her, clearly not used to hearing no. For a moment, the air between them tightened. Then, slowly, he nodded and tucked the envelope away. The silence lingered, but not unkindly. "I looked you up," he said. "You're at St. Luke's?" "Pediatrics." "NICU," she corrected. "Mostly preemies." He nodded, impressed. "That's hard work." She gave a small shrug. "It's worth it." The conversation wobbled, an awkward dance between two people who didn't quite know what to make of each other. But something settled in the quiet. Beneath Grant's polished surface was a man trying to hold too much together. And Elena, still dripping in yesterday's chaos, was calm in a way he hadn't felt in years. Eventually, she stood. "I should go." He rose with her. "Will I see you again?" She hesitated, then gave a lopsided smile. "Depends. Are you always this mysterious?" His laugh came unexpectedly quiet, genuine. "Only on Mondays." She walked away without giving an answer. But behind her, Grant watched, not with obligation, but with something far rarer. Admiration. Elena's morning was quiet, too quiet for a Saturday. She decided to take a walk through the park to clear her head. The soft rustle of leaves in the wind and the chirps of birds overhead were a sharp contrast to the adrenaline of the past week. Everything had felt different since the poolside rescue. It was almost as if the world was spinning a little slower for her, like her life had taken a different course without her realizing. The path ahead curved gently, leading her past a pond where children chased dragonflies and couples walked hand in hand. She felt a peace she hadn't known she needed, a gentle reminder that life could still be simple, even with all the changes swirling around her. She was just about to take a seat on a nearby bench when a voice, familiar, excited, cut through the peaceful hum of the park. Elena. She turned to find Charlie sprinting toward her, his dark hair bouncing with each step. His face lit up with a smile that could have melted anyone's heart. The moment he reached her, he threw his arms around her in a tight hug. Charlie. Elena gasped, barely able to catch her breath. Hi, he exclaimed, his voice breathless. I missed you. A rush of warmth filled her chest as she knelt to return his hug. The feeling of his little arms around her, tight and secure, reminded her of why she had done what she did, why she didn't hesitate when it mattered. He was alive, safe, and it was because of her. But what she didn't know was how much he had come to trust her in that short time. Grant stood a few feet behind Charlie, a slight smile playing on his lips. He wasn't dressed in his usual polished suit today. Instead, he wore a more relaxed button-up shirt and slacks. He looked human, real. Hello, Elena, he said casually, his tone a little more at ease than the last time they spoke. She stood up, brushing the dirt from her jeans. Grant, Charlie. She couldn't help but smile at the sight of the two of them. They seemed so much like a family now. She had seen Grant's softer side the week before, but this version of him, was different. He was more open, almost playful. It felt strange to witness. Charlie tugged at her arm, his energy infectious. Are you coming to lunch with us? We have sandwiches. Grant nodded. We were hoping you'd join us. It's the least we can do. Elena hesitated. She didn't want to impose. She barely knew them, and yet, they had come to mean something more to her. There was a quiet bond growing between them, one that neither words nor formalities could explain. All right, Elena agreed. Just for a bit. As they walked together toward a nearby café in the park, the tension between them seemed to vanish. Their conversation flowed more easily this time. Elena learned that Charlie was now obsessed with dinosaurs, that he'd taken up soccer, and that he had a seemingly endless supply of jokes. Grant talked about his work, but didn't dwell on it. He seemed to genuinely enjoy their time together. And Elena? She found herself laughing more than she expected, drawn into their world, just for a few hours. Over the next few days, their meetings became a quiet routine. Grant invited her to his estate for lunch, a few casual walks around his sprawling property, and sometimes, just to sit in the garden with Charlie as they watched the sunset. Elena's presence had begun to feel like a constant, a grounding force for them both. She'd never expected to grow so close to them, yet here she was, finding herself drawn into the orbit of a man she barely knew, yet couldn't seem to pull away from. But one afternoon, the world would once again shift in an instant. It started like any other visit. The three of them were sitting in the large, lush backyard, the warmth of the sun touching their skin, as Charlie played with his toy cars on the grass. Elena sat nearby, watching him, enjoying the simplicity of the moment. It was nice, peaceful, familiar. But then, Charlie suddenly stopped playing. His toy car tumbled from his hands and landed with a soft thud on the grass. He stood up slowly, swaying a little. His face turned pale, too pale. Elena's heart clenched. Charlie, she asked, moving to his side. Her voice was sharp now, the calmness of the moment replaced with instinct. Before she could reach him, Charlie collapsed into her arms. His small body went limp, and his breath came in shallow, ragged gasps. Elena's heart jumped into her throat. Grant, she shouted, her voice demanding, urgent. Grant was on his feet in a heartbeat, but it was Elena who acted first. She cradled Charlie in her arms, checking his pulse. It's a complication, she muttered to herself, already recognizing the signs of a delayed drowning injury, a condition that could have devastating effects even after a victim seemed to recover. Call 911, she barked at Grant. Now, Grant, his face now completely drained of color, fumbled for his phone as Elena moved quickly, keeping Charlie's head elevated, her hands pressing gently against his chest, trying to keep him stable. She breathed deeply, focusing on Charlie. Stay with me, buddy. Stay with me, she whispered. Grant did as she asked, pulling the phone to his ear, his face pale. We need help. My son, he's not breathing. We're at Maddox's estate. Elena's world had narrowed to nothing but Charlie. Her fingers pressed into his ribs, her breathing steady despite the chaos in her mind. She couldn't lose him. Not after everything they had been through together. Not after the bond they had started to form. Minutes felt like hours, but when the sirens wailed in the distance, Elena's mind finally began to slow. She kept talking to Charlie, kept reassuring him, and when the paramedics arrived, they moved in with practiced efficiency. Elena rode with them in the ambulance, her hand gripping Charlie's cold, lifeless one as they rushed to the hospital. Grant followed behind them, his hands shaking at the wheel, his face contorted in worry. When they reached the hospital, Elena stayed close to Charlie. The doctors worked quickly to stabilize him, but she stayed grounded, her thoughts only on him. The hallway outside the ER was tense, but not a word passed between her and Grant. Instead, his hand found hers, and in that quiet moment, all the unspoken things between them fell away. Grant didn't say thank you. He didn't need to. His fingers squeezed hers, and that simple gesture spoke volumes. And in that moment, everything shifted again. In the weeks that followed, Charlie's recovery was a slow, steady climb. Each day, Elena spent more time at the Maddox estate, checking in on him, guiding his rehabilitation, and offering words of encouragement. The boy's smile returned, brighter than ever, and with it, a sense of normalcy that had been shaken to its core. But as Charlie healed, something else began to stir. Something between Elena and Grant that neither could easily ignore. It started innocently enough. Evenings spent watching the sunset over the estate's sprawling grounds. After a long day, when the house grew quiet, Grant would often invite Elena to sit with him on the balcony. It was always unspoken, but there was an understanding time together without the weight of obligation. At first, their conversations were casual, the type one would expect between two people who had only recently become acquainted. But as the days turned into weeks, the walls around them began to erode. Grant spoke with surprising vulnerability, something Elena hadn't expected from the man who, despite his kindness, still carried the aura of a billionaire, aloof, untouchable. He shared stories about his late wife, a woman he had loved deeply. His voice faltered as he spoke of her death, the pain of raising Charlie alone. "I never thought I'd find someone who could understand the weight of all this," he said one evening, his eyes fixed on the horizon. His words were raw, tinged with an exhaustion that had nothing to do with physical labor. "You build a life, a fortress," he continued, his fingers tracing the rim of his glass absent-mindedly. "And then, one day, it's just empty. I've had everything, but it still felt like nothing." Elena could feel the weight of his admission, a loneliness that had seeped into his every word. He wasn't just mourning his wife. He was mourning the life he had thought would unfold, and the isolation success had left him with. And then, one night, as the evening air turned cool and the sky deepened into twilight, Elena found herself speaking about her own past. She had always kept her history close to her chest, too close. But tonight, in the calm of Grant's company, it felt right to share. She told him about her younger brother, how his life had been taken in a tragic accident. A preventable one, caused by a distracted driver. It was that moment, that irreparable loss, that had pushed her into nursing. She didn't just want to heal people physically. She wanted to be the shield between someone and the kind of grief that could shatter your world. "Sometimes, I think, maybe I'm still trying to save him," she confessed, the words slipping out before she could pull them back. Grant's gaze softened. He didn't need to say anything. His silence was enough. The unspoken understanding between them grew stronger with every word exchanged, each vulnerable truth bringing them closer than they ever intended. The conversation shifted again, quieter now, more intimate. They sat side by side on the balcony, watching as the lights of the city flickered below them. A gentle breeze swept through the garden, carrying the scent of jasmine. Grant was still, his voice barely more than a whisper. "You didn't just save my son, Elena. You broke through." The words lingered between them, hanging in the cool night air. Elena's heart skipped a beat. She could hear the sincerity in his voice, but something inside her held her back. She could feel the pull between them, magnetic, undeniable. Her body was inches away from his, the warmth of his presence so close she could almost feel the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Grant turned to face her, his eyes dark with something she couldn't name. He moved slightly closer, and for a heartbeat, their lips were mere inches apart. But then, like a sudden gust of wind that blew out a candle, doubt swept over her. She pulled away, her pulse racing, her mind spinning. Was this real? Or was this just gratitude? Was she just a part of his healing process, someone to fill the space left by his loss? Grant didn't reach for her. He didn't press. He simply leaned back, his eyes searching hers for any sign of what she was thinking. The tension between them was thick, but it wasn't discomforting. It was charged, waiting. He exhaled, a quiet release of air. "When you're ready," he said softly, his words barely above a whisper. "I'll be here." There was something in his voice, something in the way he said it, that made her believe he wasn't just speaking out of politeness. He was giving her space, respecting her boundaries. But the promise was there, clear and open, like a door she could choose to walk through whenever she felt ready. As she sat there, her thoughts tangled, she realized that what had begun as a simple connection had turned into something deeper, something more complicated. And yet, for the first time in a long time, Elena didn't feel afraid. For the first time, she felt like she could take her time with this. She could take her time with him. But for now, she didn't say anything. She simply smiled softly, nodding. She wasn't ready yet. But maybe she would be. Elena returned to work that Monday morning with the same sense of purpose that had carried her through the chaos of the past weeks. But nothing about this day felt ordinary. She was called into an urgent meeting with the hospital board, a request that caught her off guard. With no clue what was in store, she straightened her uniform and walked into the conference room, where an atmosphere of anticipation hummed in the air. The board members greeted her with polite smiles, but it was the chairperson's words that left her breathless. "Elena," the chairperson began, "we've been incredibly impressed with your work, particularly your quick actions in the field and the way you handled the trauma case of young Charlie Maddox. Because of this, we've received a generous donation for a new pediatric trauma program, and we'd like you to lead it." A stunned silence followed. Elena blinked, unable to comprehend what she was hearing. "Lead it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," the chairperson confirmed. "The program will be fully funded by an anonymous donor, and we want you to head it. It's a major opportunity, Elena." She was still processing the shock of being offered such a prestigious position when another board member slid a folder toward her. "This is the full proposal," they added. "It's all yours if you accept." Elena opened the folder, her eyes scanning the paperwork. But one line stopped her cold. The program was named after her. The Elena Rodriguez Pediatric Trauma Program. Her heart thudded in her chest. She flipped through the pages, searching for some hint of who the donor was, but it was all marked as anonymous. She felt a knot tighten in her stomach as a suspicion began to form. Later that day, she arrived at the Maddox estate to check on Charlie, still reeling from the unexpected offer. The house was quiet, and Charlie was resting in his room. As she sat by his bedside, the door to the room creaked open, and there stood Grant. Just as he always did now, effortlessly commanding attention, his presence filling the space. But this time, she wasn't interested in small talk or pleasantries. She couldn't stop herself from confronting him. "Grant," she began, her voice low but steady. "I need to know something." He raised an eyebrow, sensing the shift in her tone. "What's wrong?" "The pediatric trauma program," she said, her voice thick with frustration. "The one named after me. The one that's fully funded. Who's the donor?" Grant's eyes darkened for just a moment, the hint of something guilt flickering in his gaze. He stepped closer, his hands in his pockets. "I see you found out," he said softly. Elena's jaw tightened. "You think you can fix everything with money?" she asked, her voice sharp. Grant's expression softened, and he exhaled, his gaze lowering to the floor for a brief moment. When he spoke again, it was with a calm that contrasted the storm swirling inside her. "No. I don't think I can fix everything with money," he said. "But I wanted to give you the choice no one ever gave you." Elena's breath caught. "What do you mean by that?" "I know what it's like to feel trapped," he said, meeting her eyes. "To feel like you don't have the power to change things. I've spent my life building a fortress around myself and my family, but in the end, I've realized that the real gift I can give you isn't just money. It's the freedom to choose what you want your future to look like." The words struck her like a wave, knocking her sideways. Grant wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't trying to buy her affection. He was trying to empower her. The weight of his gesture hung in the air, impossible to ignore. For a moment, Elena stood silent, her thoughts in disarray. She had always fought for her independence. She had always believed she had to earn everything on her own. But this was different. Grant was offering her a chance to lead, to make a real difference, not out of obligation, but out of a desire to see her thrive. "I'm not asking you to accept it just because it's a gift," Grant continued, his voice steady but full of meaning. I'm offering you a chance to decide what you want. If you want to take it, take it. If not, that's okay too. Elena looked at him, her mind racing. She had spent so many years trying to control everything, trying to fix things on her own. But now, for the first time in what felt like forever, she was being offered the choice to create something of her own, to take the reins in a way she had never imagined. The feeling was overwhelming, both terrifying and exhilarating. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she felt like she had the power to choose it. That night, as she sat beside Charlie's bed, watching him sleep peacefully, Elena allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The weight of the past was still there, but it no longer defined her. The life she had been leading, the life she thought she had to fight for on her own, no longer felt like the only option. In the quiet of the room, Elena let herself believe that she deserved something more, something greater. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of happiness. And maybe, just maybe, love. The sun poured through the branches of the trees in Grant's expansive garden, casting a golden hue over the serene surroundings. The air was warm, but a soft breeze swept through, rustling the leaves and creating an idyllic atmosphere for a day that had been a long time coming. The scene was intimate. Only close friends, hospital staff, and a handful of family members filled the seats in the lush garden, creating a sense of closeness and personal connection. Elena stood at the entrance of the garden, the sound of soft music filling the air. She had never imagined herself walking down an aisle in a moment like this, but here she was. She wasn't wearing an extravagant gown, but rather a simple yet stunning dress that hugged her figure gently. It was elegant and timeless, much like the love she had found here. As her eyes met Grant's across the aisle, a rush of emotion hit her, and for the first time, she felt calm. This was her moment, her choice. And it felt right. Charlie, now completely recovered and full of life, beamed as he took Elena's arm. His eyes sparkled with joy as he proudly led her down the aisle toward Grant. Every step was a reminder of the past, of the moment by the pool when Elena had fought to save his life, not just as a nurse but as someone who truly cared. Grant stood at the altar, his posture straight, yet his eyes were full of emotion. The man who had been so composed, so powerful, was now visibly moved. His expression softened as Elena approached, the woman who had changed everything for him, who had brought light into the dark corners of his life and rebuilt the fortress around his heart. He didn't need grand gestures today. His love for her was clear, and it was all that mattered. When Elena reached the altar, she was close enough to feel his heartbeat, to see the depth of emotion in his eyes. She smiled through the tears that welled up in her eyes, remembering the storm they had weathered together, how far they had come. From the frantic moments by the pool to this, here, now, everything had transformed. The connection between them was undeniable. As the officiant spoke the words that were to unite them, Elena's gaze never left Grant's. When it was his turn to speak his vows, his voice was steady but filled with love, every word more meaningful than the last. "You jumped into a storm you didn't have to face," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "And you changed everything. For him. For me." He paused, his hands gently holding hers as he looked into her eyes. "You saved us, Elena. And now, you've given me the greatest gift, your love." Elena's heart swelled as the weight of his words sank in. She had always feared the storms of life. She had always been the one to act, to control, to fix things. But here, in this moment, she realized that love, real love, was about surrendering control. It was about trusting. And through that trust, she had found something far greater than she ever imagined, her place in his life, in Charlie's life, and in a family that was once broken. Her voice caught in her throat as she said her vows, barely able to hold back the tears. "You've taught me that love isn't about fixing everything, but about standing together through it all. I never thought I could have this happiness, this family. But with you, I know that together, we can face anything." The rings were exchanged, each one a symbol of commitment and love that had stood the test of time and trials. Grant slipped the ring onto Elena's finger with a steady hand, and as he did, she felt the weight of the future, of the life they would build together, of the lessons they had learned along the way. Their kiss, soft but deep, sealed the vows they had spoken, and the crowd erupted into applause, the sound mingling with the soft rustle of the trees. Elena pulled back, looking at Grant with a smile that spoke volumes. This was it. This was the beginning of everything they had worked for. The camera lingered on Charlie, who stood proudly by their side, his eyes wide with joy. His once fragile body was now healthy and full of life. The boy who had once been saved by Elena's courage was now a testament to the strength of love and hope. His smile was radiant, his pride in his new family unmistakable. As the applause faded, the camera pulled back, capturing the happy couple standing hand in hand, a new chapter beginning as they walked away together. What had started as a desperate moment by a pool and emergency, a storm, had grown into a love story unlike any other. A love born from courage, sealed with trust, and finally fulfilled. Elena had once feared that love would never come to her. But here, in this moment, she realized that it had always been there, waiting for her to let go, to take a leap of faith. She had jumped into that storm with no idea what would happen next. And now, she was living the life she never thought possible, surrounded by love, and with a future full of promise. If you enjoyed this story, ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing, heartfelt stories like this. Also, let us know where you're watching from and drop your thoughts in the comments. What did you think of Elena's bravery, Grant's transformation, and Charlie's journey to recovery? We'd love to hear your opinions on this touching love story. Did you find it inspiring? Be sure to share this with your friends and stay tuned for more emotional and uplifting tales that will warm your heart. Thanks for listening.